Something came from Baltimore, Baltimore, Baltimore. Something came from Baltimore, Baltimore, Baltimore.
Hey guys, this is a YouTube exclusive. I'm glad that you decided to check it out. My first conversation with Orrin Evans was July 11, 2020, and you can find this interview on the YouTube site. At that time, we were at the beginning stages of the COVID-19 pandemic. In this interview, I'm able to catch up with Orrin Evans to see what happened to him next. So it's pretty interesting. Orrin Reed is a historic broadcaster in the Philly market, and I was saying Orrin instead of Orrin throughout the interview, and I was going to clean it up in the podcast version, but you get a chance as an exclusive to see how I screw up in this interview. Enjoy the long form interview with Orrin Evans. Orrin Evans, welcome to Something Came from Baltimore.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure, especially since I love Baltimore. I got to figure out where it falls because I have like my hometown and my second hometown, my third. So I guess it's in between like my fourth and fifth, Baltimore and Seattle. So I'll give them both love.
Yeah, and you're always welcome.
Oh, thank you.
The last time we talked was last year. We were doing this, we were talking about the intangible between, and it was a really fun interview. It actually was my second largest listened to video. I think I got passed on a lot, where you were driving in your car and we were doing our interview.
Yep, I loved it. I've listened. I forgot about it, and then I listened, and I was like, "Oh wow, this is great."
Yeah, yeah, it's something that you don't expect. I was kind of hoping you were in a car today, but what's what's good about that is that I never really have an opportunity to follow up with people, you know, from that last interview. So if people want to listen to the last interview and start this one, we were just in COVID time period. It was just a couple months. You were deciding, should you do live streams? Should you know, drive a taxi? Should you, you were in a place. So you weren't really sure what you were going to do. What happened in general? What did you decide to do?
Well, I did a lot. I did embrace the live stream world, and I put together a series called Club Patio on right on my patio, and I really just had a great time, you know, presenting music live on my patio. And then NPR heard about what I was doing and did a feature on what I was doing along with two other people who were presenting music in their houses. And a bunch of musicians came out to help me. Buster Williams did one, Robin Eubanks did the last one the other day, Greg Osby, Nasheet Waits. I mean, just a really, Jeff Tain Watts, Jonathan Blake, Desron Douglas. I mean, so many people came through and helped me get the series together, and the Pittsburgh Jazz Festival supported it, and they got me through this last summer. Then we went into doing donations for this year. And I mean, it just really was a fun thing to do. It kept us all together in a safe environment. You know, we did an outside thing for last year and this year, and thank God no one got sick. You know, I mean, that is definitely, even now, that's definitely a possibility. I mean, mostly we kept to a vaccinated crowd, but that doesn't, at this point, as we all see, that doesn't really mean anything. So I'm glad we got through it safely. Everyone's healthy, and I presented music. You know, luckily I did get my Uber license, but I didn't do it. I got it, and I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. I just found a way to make, you know, and to be honest, it wasn't it wasn't always a financial thing, like let me Uber or let me do this. It was more so I need a goal. I'm a goal-oriented person. So it's like, all right, I'm practicing this music for this record date. I'm working on this for this. I'm doing this for this. Everything I have to have, you know, a point. So I know a lot of people locked themselves in their house and practiced their instrument and worked on whatever, and now they're like, they sound amazing, or they've worked on this great, amazing piece, and that's beautiful. I envy those people, you know, but I couldn't do it because I was like, well, wait a minute, why am I doing this? Nothing, when are the stages opening up? Do I have a record date? Blah, blah, blah. So Club Patio gave me a purpose. You know, I had something to do that I could see the fruit of my labor. And that's just me personally. I mean, I'm not saying that's everyone else's story. That's my story. So that's what I did. And also within that, I bought a new house. I'm sitting here talking to you now in a different house. At the beginning of COVID, I never thought I'd move. We moved. We sold our old house to my youngest son, moved into a new house. And the reason I was 2 minutes late for this interview is because I was talking to the contractor to help me build some stuff outside. So I found some purpose.
Yeah, you stay busy. I did see you have a lot of live streams available. There's one thing that I saw is that there was a release of Charlie Porter's Hindsight album. I interviewed him on March 7th, and you worked with him. That may be pre-COVID, but that
No. That was during COVID.
Oh, well, what a great album. When I heard that album, I told him that's my favorite album of this year so far. I said, I know it's only early March, but it's a great album. It's a great, the album was great. I felt that he was such a great interview. I had him on the show. My one of my questions was, were you telling him what to call these songs? Because you're from Philly, and Things Fall Apart is a roots album. Tipping Point is a roots album, and these are songs that he played. He had a vision thing for the whole album.
No is the answer. And honestly, I wasn't super familiar with Charlie. I hadn't even met him before we did that record. He called me a while earlier to do it, and it was an intense record. I mean, he had all these keyboard parts, all this stuff, and I wasn't really dealing with that at that time. You know, I mean, as far as checking all of that, the keyboard parts, and actually it was a great saxophonist who did most of the keyboard parts, and I just played piano. But I didn't really know who he was at all. I hadn't really checked him out. I was familiar because a lot of people in my big band were familiar with him. So going into that record date, I had no idea where it was going. And when I finally listened to the record and saw it all together, I was really impressed by every single part of it. I mean, even how he handled the studio and that session. I was so impressed at the session that the next day I hired him to play the Blue Note with me. And we did I had a ball playing at the Blue Note with him on trumpet joining my quartet.
Equality, harmony, lots of peace, now you in limbo. It's lots to see, lots of read, privacy, property, how I need kinfo. A boost on my credit, a bank full of blessings, the gap is all info. But that ain't the rhetoric, and that ain't irrelevant. Connected in power, but self-destructive, baby, that ain't intelligent. I looked at that, wrote it down, learned about, then I found it was all edited. I just called my mama and told her that.
You know, I'm listening to you. You know, I moved also. I moved to Philadelphia. And Charlie, yeah, so I'm in town. Charlie Porter said, "Oh, I love Portland." Now he's in New York. You're moving.
Yeah.
You know, it feels that the pandemic gave people an opportunity to step back from their normal grind and kind of think about what they're doing, and maybe they had a little more time to make those moves that they weren't going to make before. You were interviewed by Brian Pace from the Pace Report. You know, you did talk about that there was some like internal reflection during that period, and that kind of brought out the title of the album, The Magic of Now.
Right. We tend to deal with yesterday and tomorrow, and now is very intimidating to a lot of people. And if people don't realize what I mean by that, let's just deal with musicians. We listen to a music and we listen to all the music that was made yesterday by, we're listening to whatever, whether it's Parker, whether it's Marsalis, whatever, it doesn't matter. Some of it, whether yesterday was yesterday or whether yesterday was the 1950s, it's still yesterday. or yester time, for lack of better words. And so we inform what we play based on what happened yesterday. We're not thinking, oh, okay, tomorrow, but we're thinking yesterday. Now, where we think about tomorrow is where we say, well, what are they going to say about us tomorrow if we don't play what we know in the music of yesterday? But what we run from sometimes, not really knowing it, is right now, because we're so scared of right now. We're like, all right, well, I know I should play this, but or you do a take in the studio, or you do a gig. A friend of mine, I went to see him play Sunday, and I said, man, you sounded great. And he texted me, he says, man, I was really feeling down about my playing. And I was like, I guess I thank my parents and I thank God for that. I'm like, man, I got a chance to play. I don't feel, I've never walked away feeling down about what I play. Yeah, I should play better. Yeah, we all should. But at that moment, that was what I was supposed to play. At that exact moment, that was now. So if there's a wrong note, I got to deal with it. The next time, don't play that wrong note, but live in the now and really just, if anything I learned during COVID, it's like, let's deal with right now, because none of us could predict tomorrow. We already knew what we were dealing with yesterday, but we really couldn't predict tomorrow. So let's deal with right now and have a good old time. Maybe that's like years ago, I used to drink kamikazes instead of Long Island iced teas, which I drink now. And everyone said, yeah, but that's perfect for you because you're like a kamikaze pilot. I'm just like, let's do this. Let's just do this. And that's what that's about. And it's not just musical, it's about my sons. My two sons are older. They're 27 and 24. Is that right? Something like that, 23 and 28. I can't remember how old they are right now. They're right there. And sometimes it's like, oh man, let them grow, let them be men, let them figure stuff out. Like, you know what? Let me be right there, right now, all the time. As annoying as it is, let's deal with the now. I don't know what tomorrow holds. So that's what this is. The magic of this record is really about the magic of now. Its first takes is live. It wasn't even supposed to be a record. It wasn't a record. It was a gig, and I applaud Smoke Sessions for making it sound like a record. There was no audience in the room. It was a live stream, but it was a gig. It wasn't a record date, and now it is. And that happened. We didn't know at that point, but we played for the moment. We played for now.
The pandemic was a lot. It was really serious if you think about it. We didn't know, like, we never had this before. And then in the background, you have like a presidential, problems, and Black Lives Matter. We had, violence, police violence, unnecessary, and the women's rights was brought up, and democracy is at a peril. It's really kind of crazy. Do you feel that all that was going on behind you, along with the time that you had to yourself, that you were able to kind of come up with the magic of now? Because if you're able to pull this off, Orrin, it's really revolutionary.
I appreciate that. When it's hard to answer that because it wasn't a record. It was really now. It was a gig. And to be honest, if it was a record, I may have thought about it differently. I may have said, oh, well, we got to do 5 takes of this. I don't know if I would have played 3 of Emmanuel's tunes. That's not necessarily true. I might have, but I would have, I don't know if I would have done it like that. There was no rehearsal for those tunes. I love how it sounds, and I love that it sounds like there was. But I think what really informed that moment and that record date, here I am calling it a record date. What informed it was just a desire to play music. I wasn't working, and no one was. So every opportunity to get together and play music was welcome. Not every, but most. And so here we are with a gig in smack dab in the middle of the pandemic in December. So it's like I was more excited, like I always am. Even I'm playing this week with the same band. I was more excited about just getting together with my friends and playing some music, and that's, if anything informed it, it was just what we were dealing with at the moment of being denied being social. We were denied of that social hang. And I really just wanted to get together and hang. I mean, I remember the margaritas just as much as I remember the music.
So the reflection that you had, plus the work that you're doing, I've read that you've moved on from the bad plus. You put in 4 years on the clock, and it seems like you have so much on your plate. I don't know.
Well, no, I didn't put in 4 years. I only put in about 2.5 to 3. I mean, depending on whether you're counting COVID time or not.
Yeah, it's on the calendar. We'll just say the calendar years.
There you go. But I think what it was for me is I did it. I enjoyed it. But I've also, for 20 some years prior to that, really dealt with dealing with Orrin Evans and anything that includes. So maybe I've been spoiled. Maybe I've been spoiled to be able to focus on some things that I want, whether it's my label, my small group, my big group. And then honestly, throughout COVID, I started getting into real estate. I started getting into different business things. And I just needed the time to do other things. So, and it wasn't, and honestly, although I know no one wants to hear this, no one wants to even say this because it may seem like an attack or offensive, and it is. That's not the intention at all. It's just the truth. If you're in any kind of relationship and you're like, you love this, I like it, but I don't love it, and it was okay. I felt okay after a few years to honestly just say that. Mm-hmm. I was like, I don't love this. I like them. I love them. I have no animosity towards Reed or Dave in mind. No part of my body has that, but I got to a point where I needed to do what I loved, and I wanted, and that's also the magic of now. I needed to make sure everything I do, musically or not, was something that I loved to do. I mean, none of us like to do, chores, but we have to do those. Yeah. But other things in my life, I wanted to make sure I loved it. And I met a lot of great people. I learned some great music. It was a pleasure really playing Reed Anderson and Dave's music. It was good to hear my tunes in that format. But who knows? You look at time, and I just want to make sure everything that I do, I really want to do. And that may be selfish, but it's the truth. And so that's some of the reason, if not all of the reason, why I left. I woke up one day and we were supposed to start a new record, and I didn't want to do it. I just didn't want to do it, and couldn't figure out why, because no one did anything to me. It wasn't like, oh, these guys suck, I don't want to be around them. It was none of that. It was just, I needed to be true to myself, and we're in an industry where that's sometimes hard to do because you have so many other eyes looking at you. Someone posted recently something about, an article with Branford Marsalis. It's an older article, but everybody was so bothered by his tone or whatever. And I'm just like, I guess I don't really care that much. I'm like, does it make him happy? And I know him very well. If he's happy, I'm happy. Like, we all have to be happy, Mm-hmm. And that old standard, I want to be happy, but I can't be happy till you're happy too. No matter what makes you happy, just find your happiness, and I'll find happiness in knowing you're happy. We don't have to be happy about the same shit. We just both got to be happy. So you be happy. What makes you happy? Cool. What makes me happy? And I had to deal with what was not making me happy.
Well, I think it's a wise move. Yeah, I believe that if you're happy, you're passionate. And if you're passionate, it comes out in the music and in your life. Going on tour and doing these albums, it's a full commitment. And if you don't feel the passion, it's, it just kind of wears you down. I mean, you can smile and go through the whole process, but it might not feel as good. And you need to get to that feeling. So I think what your new job is, you're going to be a self-help like guru about like making people feel good, like in jazz or something.
That some people may now this is gonna sound like arrogant. I'm just joking, but I'm dead serious. Some people may say that's been my old job. I got, I've always been into, there was a point where I literally thought about getting into being a life coach. Not because I know everything, in no way, but I'm definitely, I like to talk and I like to smile and I like happiness. I can drink happiness all day, every day. I mean, everything else. And I try to run away from anything and everything that brings me stress in my life. And that's not easy. I mean, but at my age, I'm thankful that my sons are older, so I don't have little kids. Now it's just me and my wife. So if we're not making each other happy, then we got to work on that every day because this is all we got. And I've been with my wife since I was 21 years old. So there's no way I'm leaving her and being by myself. So it's all about us finding our happiness and finding our shine. Everybody deserves to shine, everyone across the board.
I don't want to dig into this Brian Pace, but he did an interview. He has 3.5K followers, so I can't hate him, but he did an interview with you and you said that you were, that you really had the magic of now, you're working on it. And then he said to you, so are you finally going to take music seriously?
Oh yeah, I remember that comment was hilarious. Yeah, I was.
Was he being sarcastic or because
Well,
now you didn't flinch, your face didn't flinch, and you're like,
right.
no, I take all my music seriously, blah blah blah, and you went right into the next line, and I was like, wait a minute, that's all you do is put out serious music. What is he talking about?
I know. It's funny when I listened back, I heard that, and
He said it twice.
I laughed at it. And the funniest thing about it is I've known Brian probably it's been about 10 years almost since he's been doing it. And that interview, ironically, was probably my favorite. There was another one I did with him in Detroit. And the reason it was my favorite is because one, it is the most honest interview. And what I mean by that, I was out of shape for even doing an interview. I was like, how do you do? We were just finished playing a gig. I hadn't played a gig. And I can say this and he'll understand it. And he was like out of shape as far as doing interviews. He hadn't done it in a while. So we were both chasing our tail, I'm trying to chase him with his questions and then he's chasing. So, I mean, that was also definitely a time. It's definitely a moment in time where you'll look back at it. It's like you look back at some of Richard Pryor interviews and you're like, oh, I remember that time or what was going on. So there's no question when you look at that interview that there was some COVID PTSD going on at that moment.
I don't know. He dresses better than I could ever dress. So he looked pretty good. I subscribe to his YouTube page.
Love him, man.
So now he has another follower. So you have Emmanuel Wilkins on this album, and this is right around the time that he was probably up for the New York Times Best Album of the Year for Grace and Mercy. I interviewed him, and I found him to be, a woke, very thoughtful, very very kind and intelligent. I obviously I don't have anything bad to say. When you do interviews, it's funny because Charlie Porter, yourself, and him really kind of pour themselves out in the interview and they just be themselves. So it becomes more of a conversation. And he was like that. But here he is, like getting that accolade for his first album. What was it like? Did you give him any tips on how to handle that newfound fame?
Not at all. He doesn't need any tips from me. He comes from a very grounded home situation, very well read, and in a very intelligent young man. So he doesn't need any tips from me about navigating the industry and career, at least not yet. Yeah, there's definitely some business things as he gets into it. I mean, that he's probably never experienced, negotiating and things like that, things that I'm still working on. But as far as who he is as a man and as an artist, I have always been impressed by him, even when he was 11 years old. And that's even including his fashion, which some people could giggle at and say, oh well, why would you even bring that up? Because they see you before they hear you. And when you see him walk in the door, you have to acknowledge and you have to deal with who this man is that walked in. And I say man because he's the same age as my youngest son, year younger, but I really appreciate all of Emmanuel and who he is as a human being. And that makes it so much easier to jump on the bandstand with him, you know, and play music with him. And I love his band. You know, Daryl Johns is an amazing bass player. You know, I can't remember the piano player's name, but I love him. And I just saw him in concert not too long ago. And I very rarely sit in the audience and listen to a concert just because I really rather be backstage or somewhere else. I don't really sit in the audience. And I sat in my little lawn chair at the outdoor Exit Zero concert and was taken on a trip. And I just, there's nothing I could say about Emmanuel, and he'll laugh if he hears this, except that he's horrible at returning text messages.
Yeah.
Other than that, he's on the ball.
That's funny you said that because, you know, he was like, I reran your thing because you were up for a Grammy. I reran his show and I wanted to see if I could get, you know, maybe some feedback, you know, what he thought his year was going. And I contacted him and he took like a month, I think, before he texted me back, said he would be willing to do it. So then I texted him, I said, okay, well, I'm available, gave him all the times, and he's never responded back. So.
And it's not personal, trust me.
Oh, no, that's fine. Well, I mean, it's already done. But there's a gentleman down in Baltimore named Clarence Ward, and I said, don't do an Emmanuel Wilkins on me because he did an interview with me, and then he was going to release his album maybe about 2 months later. And I said, I'd like to get you back. But, you know, so it was our little internal joke. He goes, no, I'll never do that to you. So it worked out.
And, you know, and it's hard because I'll be honest, especially during this time, I was like, all right, whatever. If I didn't have a great management team that I have who care, I would have. There were several things I missed. I missed a record date because I wasn't used to having shit on my calendar during that COVID time. I would get up and do other things like, let me run to the store, let me do this, let me fix this, let me do this, you know, my everything I was doing was non-musical. Like we were fixing up the house, we were doing this, and then all of a sudden, someone said, "Hey man, aren't you supposed to be in the studio today?" I was like, I had to run all the way to New York. So there was a lot of what happened during this time that we all need to wake up again and just be like, okay, let's get back on our phone, let's get back on these emails, let's get back on, you know, everything.
That's funny. I totally understand it. We're gonna get into this album that's The Magic of Now, just released on July 23rd, 2021 on the Smoke Session Records. People are waiting for an Emmanuel Wilkins album to come out, and in theory, he's given a lot of room to breathe on this album. In fact, everyone's has a lot of room to breathe. And if they're waiting for a new album, I'd say check this album out. He has a great footprint on it. I picked out 4 songs. I actually picked out 5, but I don't know if I run out of time. The ones that really like grab me, and I keep on, you know how you look into Spotify and then you look at your phone and go, what is that song? And then you're going again, oh my God, it keeps on doing it to me. It's and I may say this name, it's the first song on the album. Is it Mina, the 11th Hour? Did I say that wrong?
That's great. That's 2 different, you said it perfect. It's actually 2 different songs. Yeah. Mina is Bill Stewart's tune and 11th Hour is Mulgrew Miller's tune.
We're going to play, I guess we'll play the 11th Hour. Do you have anything to say about that recording? Do you remember?
No. So you're going to play the 11th Hour and not Mina, or are you going to play them both together? Just
well, I'm going to play like 30 seconds of something.
Gotcha.
Which one do you want me to? Which one you want me to play? Which one has a story behind it?
Neither one of them. You know, I mean, the story behind it is real simple. The story behind it is Mulgrew Miller and the 11th Hour comes from the band Wingspan that I loved. And Mulgrew was definitely an amazing inspiration to me. And my roommate when I moved to New York was Dwayne Eubanks, and he was playing with Mulgrew. So he had all these Mogru tracks, I'm sorry, charts. So I've been playing that tune and waiting for the opportunity. And I can't even say this. I was waiting for the opportunity to record it, but that's not true because it still wasn't supposed to be a recording. I used to just use it as an opportunity to play it. And the way that we, when people listen to the record, Mina, we were playing, and the reason those two tunes are together is because Emmanuel just started playing the melody of 11th Hour. I looked at him and he started playing it right away. So there's no way to edit it, which shows you that it was a live gig and not a record date. So those two songs end up going together, and I'm going to try to play them together at all times.
Yeah, no, it's wonderful. It just starts off the whole album. The same deal with The Poor Fisherman. I feel that, everyone in the band is given an opportunity to shine, and it just has a great vibe to it. Do you have any thoughts on The Fisherman?
I mean, all of that was just, I played that tune earlier with Emmanuel, earlier gig, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, maybe not even that long ago, maybe a year and a half ago, but I've always enjoyed his compositions and the way he looks at it. Emmanuel writes like the way that I would like to write. I have a few people that I love playing their compositions because they write like what I would like to write like, and instead of like, oh, let me write a tune and copy off yours, I'll just play your tune and really learn from you and how you compose. So that was the beauty of all of, not just The Poor Fisherman, but Levels and Mama Loves. It was really fun to play somebody else's music.
Mhm.
It's a lot of responsibility being a leader. And if you can walk in and you're just like, all right, well, I don't have to worry about this, I can actually just worry about whether there's bodies in the audience, whether ticket sales, whether the band is happy. And these tunes, oh, these are cool. I could play this other person's tune. And I like, and in final, I also like playing other people's tunes, but playing them in a way that I would play them. Like, I don't know if Emmanuel would play it exactly the way we played it because we took some liberties. But I like that. I mean, that's why in 2007, I did a record of all of Bobby Watson's music. After being in his band for so long, I was like, I want to play the music the way that I like, because there were times I would play with him. And it happens because Bobby had been playing that music for so long. You get caught into a way that you play it. You do this ending, you do this. And I was like, oh, let's try this. Let's try this. So instead of doing that on Bobby's bandstand, I did it on mine, but it was still a tribute to him playing his music. So basically, all of these tunes, including Poor Fisherman, it was just great to play someone else's music and be inspired by their compositional skills.
And if I would look at this album, there's two kind of radio-friendly radio hits, and Libra to me is should be on the airwaves right now. Um,
Oh man, appreciate it.
yeah, I'd like to play a sample of it. Do you have any background on it?
That was written for my sister, actually. Maybe one Christmas, I think I was maybe 19. I couldn't afford to buy everybody gifts, so I wrote everybody a song. And I've recorded the one I composed for my mother. I recorded the one I composed for my father. I recorded the one that I wrote for my sister, which is Libra. But there's 3 more out there. I wrote one for my brother, and I composed one for my 2 nephews, and I haven't recorded that yet.
Wow. Wow, what a great song. And that's pretty impressive that you were 19 years old, because it's beautiful.
Oh,
So,
thank you. Thank
good
you.
job. Now, who's Dave?
Who is Dave is the
Who is
question.
Dave?
You know, and I'll be even more honest. This goes along my whole self-help thing. Sometimes people see what they want to see, and then that becomes their truth.
Mhm. Wow. Hold
No
it.
matter what, you know, what else is happening around, it's like this is what's happening. And I sometimes I applaud people like that because I can be distracted by, you know, the real truth. And I want everyone to pay attention. Like, no, this is really what's happening. But they keep seeing this. And, you know, that's because that's more comfortable for them to deal with. And I may not be able to go to any family events after saying that, but that was written for my mother-in-law. And not that she takes it to that degree, but there's funny things where she'll see something and it'll become her truth. So we had, it was Christmas holiday. This is a few years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And I had a friend of mine, Bill McHenry, great saxophonist, staying at my house. And I started composing this tune, and it was just like this little haunting tune, which was Dave. Bill started playing with me on saxophone. It was like, you know, we're just in the house. It's Christmas time. And then we stopped, and I went into the kitchen, and my mother-in-law says, I left this plate here for Dave if he wants something to eat. And I was like, okay. Then I said, okay, whatever. And then I just kind of forgot about it. Then the next day, she's like, oh, Dave went upstairs. I was like, okay. Then she said it the third day, and I was like, Mom, who is Dave? And she's like, Dave. And I said, his name is Bill. This is after him being with us for 2 weeks. But so the whole tune is that I just called the tune that we had been playing with in the background Dave. So that's the simple version. But then you take it to the next level. And my mother-in-law had made Dave his name. That was her truth. Like she said Dave loud and kind of like you keep saying Orrin, and it's Orrin. I just want to let you know. So
Thanks towards the end of the interview, second interview.
No problem. I didn't hear it until like the second time. I was like, oh, he's saying Orrin.
That's my Baltimore accent. Everything sounds a little off.
So anyway, that's what in a lighthearted mode, that's what this tune, you know, find like you're just committed. And she was committed to Dave, like just Dave. I'm like, who is, and she was so committed to it that it became, I never corrected her. I'm like, who is Dave? Maybe there's some, like, because there are people coming through my house all the time. It's the holiday. Maybe she meant Dave. I don't know. So that's what that tune is about. It's not specifically written. It's written for this imaginary friend named Dave. Although people think it's Dave King from the Bad Plus, and I jokingly tell him I wrote him a song, but it really just was whoever the hell Dave is.
That is a great story. That's awesome. This is weird, but are you a practicing Muslim?
Not at all.
Okay.
I mean, I didn't mean it like that. No, I was born and raised in the Kojic Church, which is like a Pentecostal church, Church of God in Christ. So I was born and raised in that environment. But then my father was pretty much whatever. My father was everything. One week he might go to a Unitarian church. The next week he would go to a Baptist church, and then he was very well read. One day would read from the Quran, one day would read from the Bible, or he was very knowledgeable of the Bible. And then my mother was deep, as I said, she was Christian and the Church of God in Christ, the Pentecostal church. So where do I lay? I lay pretty much, if I had to pick a denomination, well, I don't know if I was to call it a denomination, I would say I'm Christian, and I believe in God, and I look to God to guide me through things, but I'm also aware and appreciative of all other aspects and all other viewpoints on what brings you spiritual groundness and what brings you light in your life. So whatever brings you light, whatever brings you happiness, and whatever brings you a direction to deal with morality on it, like just things that are moral on a very high level, and you're doing what's right, I'm for it. And if you could sit down and have a conversation with me about what I believe in, and we can have a really good exchange, that's what this world is about to me.
That's a great answer. It's the very last question I have, because the album cover that you have, you're wearing that, like the skull hat, the kind of like the braided look to it.
Now, here's the funny thing. I'm glad you caught that. There's a couple things. One, I hope my manager is listening to this, because they didn't want me to use the pictures from that photo shoot, and I love it. And I don't want to say fought for it, but I was like, no, I'm sticking to it, and I'm sticking to that photo. There's some other photos, but I stuck to those photos for two reasons. One, there's always a story, and thank you for asking it. There's always a story to those any of my album covers. One album cover, my godfather had just passed, so I was wearing a hat that he gave me. Another photo shoot, I had my father smoked a corncob pipe, so I had his corncob pipe in my hand, like those little things. So there's another picture from the same photo shoot where I was wearing a red hat that my son's girlfriend gave to me. It's like a Scully, because this was outside in the middle of winter, that photo shoot. And the record company was worried about it looking like a Christmas record, although I have a Santa hat on in the picture inside because it was Christmas. But so they tried to change the color of the hat to not look red, and then we're also dealing with some other political things, but mainly the Christmas thing. And I said, do not change the color of the hat. And they're like, all right, well, let's find another picture. I said, yeah, because I wore that hat for a reason. So I don't want to say, hey, Catherine, I have the hat on, but we changed the color, because that's not what I would like to do. So we chose another picture, and that picture and that hat, I go to this Irish bar in my neighborhood called McMiniman's, and I've been going there over 20 years. It's kind of like my Cheers, and I've met a lot of people. I've met people that probably have never heard a jazz concert ever in their life. And I don't talk about being a musician. I'm just Orrin when I go in there. They know I play music, but I never talk about that side, because I like going in and just hanging out in that bar and met some great people. Mount Airy in Philly is just a very diverse neighborhood. Everybody lives in this neighborhood. So I've met a lot of people. And, I always get the questions of, what are you doing? How do you travel? You're a musician, blah, blah, blah. So there's one guy that I met in there. He was very quiet for maybe the first 2 or 3 years I used to go in there, and I knew him, His name is Carl. Very cool guy. And we were sitting there. Carl is a contractor, so he has all these different companies he's dealing with. Properties and things that he deals with. And this one day he looked at me and he said, I'm heading to Morocco for a wedding. And I was like, what? You're going to Morocco? Which was so funny to me because he was the last person I would think that would say you're getting on a plane to go to Morocco, you know? And he's like, yeah, my wife knows this person. He's getting married. He's having his 50th birthday party in Morocco. So we're flying out for the weekend. I said, the weekend? He said, no, I extended it for a week and he was going to stay. And I said, cool. I said, man, if you get over there, you know, grab me a hat. And I just said it in passing. I never thought he was going to, you know, buy me a hat or even buy me that kind of hat, you know. And there's two of them. I got it, like, now that I've moved, I lost one of them. It's somewhere in my bag, but I have them both. So I took that. He came back from Morocco and he gave me this bag, and it was like these two great Kufi looking hats. So I've been wearing those, and Jeff Tane Watts gave me one. And I've been bald since I was 18, but there's times when I get on bandstands where I'm like, oh, I didn't get a chance to get a haircut, and I'm looking like Sherman Hensley from the Jeffersons. So I wear those hats. And it's funny, since I live in Philly, everyone, every time I wear the hats, think, you know, hey, that I'm Muslim, and it's not. I just really love the hats, and I, you know, love how they make me feel. So that maybe that's the universal part of just all of it, and recognizing light and life and everything. And that experience of this contractor that went to Morocco on a whim and brought me back a hat. And now that hat is on, you know, on the jazz record. And he posted it on Facebook. He said, you know, when you give a friend a hat, and he uses it on his album cover. So, you know, a story with everything. And that's the story of that hat. And I'm glad it made the cover. And I'm glad I fought for it, because those things mean, that's how you, that's history. That's what it is. He'll never forget that hat that he bought me on his one trip to Morocco ended up on an album cover. And I'll never forget that he picked up that hat in Morocco and brought it all the way back to Mount Airy to give to me, you know. And it really, I don't mean to get into, I do mean to get into it. I don't mean to get that deep into it, but during the time that we were dealing with in America and in politics, this white guy from the suburbs goes over to Morocco and brings me back a hat that I end up wearing on an album, a jazz album cover. And he probably has one jazz record in his collection, but now he's been checking out the music. That's what this world is supposed to be about. I don't know you like that, but now we can know more about each other, and that hat and that question, and that's what life is about to me. The magic of now. Let me know what you're about right now, and hopefully it will inform our experience as human beings tomorrow.
Here, I thought you would be offended if I asked you, but you know, Mount Airy is a melting pot, you know, and also that hat is very Philly. There's a lot of Muslim guys that wear that. That's why I was like, maybe he converted and I don't know anything about it, and it's okay if you did, but that hat story is amazing. Yeah, how about that? All right, well, that kind of blew me away. So so we're done with the interview. I appreciate it. It's always a great time to talk to you. So here we go. The album's called the Magic of Now. I want to say Orrin, but it's Orrin Evans.
No, you know, you got to keep the Orions in there, because it goes with the whole theme of the interview. Now you can't have those out.
All right, Orrin Evans, aka Orrin Evans. Thank you for joining me today on Something Came from Baltimore.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, great. Thanks for doing it. I appreciate it.
No problem.
Something came from Baltimore. Something came from Baltimore.